Hello, everybody. I'm on a short holiday in Switzerland, and I thought I'm going to use this opportunity to talk to you about 210 years of peace in this country, while other Europeans were fighting, while there were two world wars, and how this place got spared, not only, but partially through its policy of neutrality. And you know, this channel is called Neutrality Studies, and that has its reasons because neutrality is one of the often forgotten foreign policies to actually create strategic balance in a region. And Switzerland is a perfect example of that. Not Switzerland of today. Switzerland of today is making a lot of mistakes when it comes to neutrality, but the Switzerland of the 19th century, of this idea that you keep this place, the mountains, the Alps, out of the direct control of one of the two big powers of the time, the French and the Austrians. If the Austrians control it, they have a direct way of attacking the French. If the French control it, they can do the same with the Austrians. So what do? You actually tell somebody who's unthreatening to actually maintain an army there and please keep the Alpine Pass clear and make sure that none of the others is going to use it. And therefore, you not only remove this place from the chessboard, you actually use the place like a nail in a house to create stability amongst the pillars of this international political environment. So the whole point of this understanding was not that you make Switzerland weak. The misunderstanding often is that neutrality is a policy of pacifism or a policy of not being involved in international affairs at all. And the opposite is the case. Even in the peace conventions, on the Vienna peace agreements of 1815, it was clearly written that Switzerland would be neutral in the interest of Europe, of all of Europe. So there was an understanding, a clear understanding, that the strategic neutrality of this place would help stabilize the entire so-called concert system, which then emerged. And yes, the concert system of the 19th century wasn't perfect. There were little wars, but there were no large general wars. There was no general bloodletting, the way that it then happened in 1914, the way that it then again happened in the 1930s. And into the 40s, and also the way that it happened later in the Cold War. So the whole point here is that if we don't just think of security as something that you make by creating a big alliance and scaring off everybody else, doing deterrence, but we think of it as a house, as a structure and an architecture, then we have a chance at creating a more intelligent security structure for the 21st century, for the multipolar 21st century, which will look much like more and already looks much more like the 19th century than what the world looked like during the Cold War. So my whole point here is that we don't need to think of the world as being either part of an alliance or being weak and just exposed. No, neutral places can have armies. Neutral places do have foreign policies with others. They are part of the security structure that also Switzerland for 210 years, out of luck and out of also some good policies, was able to maintain and contribute to. So I'm looking at you, Baltic states, and I'm looking at you, neighbors of Russia. I'm looking at you, neighbors of China, who will play an important and pivotal part. Countries like Mongolia, countries like Malaysia, countries like Indonesia, that are actually today in this middle position and that can make sure that the international waterways are open, that the international trade routes are open, and that secure those, and that promise it to everybody. The trick of neutrals is that they promise friendship to everyone. It's not the case that you try to work with nobody. No, you try to work with everyone. You try to make sure that you don't have enemies, and that's the best security there is. That's what the Europeans currently misunderstand so tragically. They think that security is created by being as threatening as possible, right? Again, deterrence. But look, you don't need to deter a friend. The Swiss today are not thinking about how to deter the French or the Germans or how to deter the Austrians because we are on a good relationship with them. So the question really is how to create a good relationship with everybody, especially the ones with the big weapons, right? As long as the ones with the big weapons do not want to attack you, you are as secure as it gets. And the deterrence, this stupid idea, only creates more and more animosity, and you only make yourself look like a threat to the others. So, long story short, peace is something that needs to be built time and again. actively, and it needs to be built with the idea of an architecture. It needs to be built with the others and not against them. As soon as you start trying to build peace against others, you're setting yourself up for the very thing that you're claiming to wanting to prevent. And just look at where Finland is today. Look at where Sweden is today. They have never been closer to actually being threatened by Russia than they are now that they joined NATO. Why? Well, because they joined NATO, because they are now a threat to Russia, and Russia actually also says that they're unhappy with what's going on. We're at a point where the Finns have to engage NATO very, very deeply and have to lease bases to the Americans, right? Who are then going to use these bases the way they want and strategically also threaten again the Russians, instead of having a cooperative security arrangement. And for all those of you who are saying, like, well, look at Ukraine, the Russians demand the neutrality of Ukraine. The neutrality of Ukraine would have avoided this entire war. And it is utterly clear by now that that's the case. I mean, because the Russians have said so time and again, and the Russians even now are saying, in order to scale down the war, Ukraine needs to be neutral. What's the Ukraine as it is today needs to promise not to be a threat. So again, we have all of the indications. So what we need to do is not to completely, utterly disarm and sing Kumbaya. What we need to do is have a cooperative security structure with the others, with the Americans, with the Europeans, with the Russians, and not one that is built on the logic of deterrence. The logic of deterrence is the way to hell. The logic of neutrality is the way to 210 years of peace and prosperity, and hopefully more of that. Thank you, everybody.